Abomination is a classic, rare, neutral 4/4 for 5 mana whose card text reads Taunt, Death Rattle. Deal 2 damage to all characters. According to Hearthstone, Abomination is used in 1% of all of its decks and is picked 31% of the time in Arena. Advocta rates Abomination as below average in Arena, while Trump rates Abomination as good in Arena, the 14th best rare card out of 36. Abomination's Death Rattle has the ability to deal a crushing blow to early board control decks like Zoo. However, its stats for 5 mana are meager, and since its Death Rattle does damage to all characters, including yourself and your minions, it is somewhat of a situational card. Most early board control decks nowadays make sure to run plenty of sticky minions like Haunted Creeper and Nerubian Egg, such that a single 2 damage area effect spell doesn't kill their whole board, and in fact sometimes makes it stronger. So sadly, even against Zerg-like strategies like Zoo and Hunter, Abomination isn't really a silver bullet, and the 5 mana slot is already overcrowded anyway with some great anti-aggro cards like Sledge Belcher. Abomination obviously works best when played against a board with a bunch of 2 health enemy minions, but don't be afraid to use it proactively by dropping him on an empty board. The advantage of Abomination over area of effect spells like Consecrate is that it does have a minion body attached to it, so don't feel obligated to only ever play him when the Death Rattle does amazing things for you. Remember that minions' Death Rattles trigger in the order in which they were played, so if you have a Harvest Golem and an Abomination in your hand and you want to play them both on the same turn, you should play Abomination before the Harvest Golem, so that if the enemy flame strikes your board, the Abomination's Death Rattle will trigger first, and will not kill the token produced by the Harvest Golem. Avenge has an unintuitive interaction with Abomination. It can revive minions killed by Abomination's Death Rattle. Just something to keep in mind. Abomination into Poison Seeds is a really awesome sounding combo that just doesn't work. Redemption and Ancestral Spirit can force the enemy to kill Abomination twice, and face its Death Rattle effect twice if they don't have a silence. All Enrage and Whenever this minion takes damage type cards synergize with Abomination, as it deals damage to your own minions as well. This is especially true for Frothing Berserker and Armorsmith, which benefit when a bunch of enemies take damage. Baron Rivendare provides a very inconsistent way to get a Flame Strike effect out of Abomination's Death Rattle. Abomination might help you to set up a massive battle rage, but Whirlwind and Deathspite are usually more effective at this. Commanding Shout can keep Abomination from killing your own minions, but if you find yourself so often having a significant number of minions on your side that already die to Abomination, it's probably best just to not run Abomination. Crush might be able to get its mana cost reduced by a bomb's Death Rattle. Most mid to high value taunts synergize with Duplicate, as it forces the opponent to activate the Duplicate for you. Equality can clear the whole board with any full damage board sweep. Immediate effects like Consecrate, Pyro, Avenging Wrath, and Barongeddon are preferred, though a bomb can get the job done. Execute is somewhat good with Abomination because you'll often find that it leaves behind damaged minions that it wasn't able to kill. Feign Death can give you a way to have a 2 mana Consecrate essentially, but it is hard to set up as you do have to have an Abomination on the board. Flesh-Eating Ghoul benefits as he does with all board sweeps. You might be able to get Gozrilla's attack doubled by a bomb's Death Rattle, but 2 minions that weakly synergize and can't even be played on the same turn because their mana costs are so much isn't really something to build a deck around. Mechgineer Thermoplug can make a Leper Gnome for every minion killed by a bomb's Death Rattle, but same goes as with Gozrilla. Both these minions just cost way too much to combo together, and the combo is not even that strong. Abomination can activate any Nerubian Eggs you have left playing around on your board. As we said before, Poison Seeds doesn't combo with Abomination in the way that you'd want it to, but it sort of can if you play Poison Seeds first and then the Abomination. It's essentially clearing their board. With Reincarnate, you can get the Death Rattle's effect right away without killing your Abomination, but again, this is sort of a clunky way for a build-your-own 2 mana Consecrate that's really just not worth it. Obviously, all minions with 2 or less health, other than Nerubian Egg, or any card that creates minions with 2 or less health, have some severe anti-synergy with Abomination. Paladin and Shaman hero powers also have anti-synergy with Abomination, as they always create minions with 2 or less health. Ice Block has some minor anti-synergy with Abomination because if you kill off your Abomination on your turn, you will actually die regardless of whether you have an Ice Block up, because secrets only activate on your enemy's turn. Some cards you can use to counter Abomination are Enraged Minions of your own, Nerubian Egg, any Silence effect, the Black Knight obviously, or any efficient 4 damage removal such as Snipe, Flame Cannon, Shadow Bolt, Soulfire, or, well, Bomb Lobber, not really because he mostly dies to the Death Rattle. So here's a Paladin deck I tried to build around Abomination. So we've got our 2 Abominations. Added in an Acolyte of Pain. That's something that's sort of in and out of Control Paladin, but seeing as it has some sort of minor synergy with Abomination, I thought it'd be a good inclusion. This is something that's atypical. I put a Redemption in. Redemption synergizes with Abomination, but it also does happen to synergize with a lot of Control Paladin-centric cards that we'll talk about. I have 2 equalities. That's something you'd put in Control Paladin anyway, but it does synergize with Abomination. Two mini bots, that's another standard thing, but it does have extra synergy with Redemption. And notice I only put in 1 Redemption because Redemption is a pretty situational / clunky card that can prevent you from hero powering if you don't want your hero power to be redeemed. 2 might be fine, I just put in 1 because I feel like it's a little too clunky. Unstable Ghoul has Redemption synergy and Acolyte synergy, and the theme of this deck is kind of like to be really punishing to early board control decks or aggro decks, so Unstable Ghoul sort of fits that theme. Wild Pyromancer, I only have 1. Abomination serves as an additional activator for equality, and a lot of Control Paladins these days are only running 1 Wild Pyromancer, so I think that's fine. 2 Aldor Peacekeepers, they're just a really good card. 1 Big Game Hunter, I don't know at what time you, the viewer, is watching this video, but at the time I'm making this, Dr. Boom is everywhere in the meta. 1 Big Game Hunter is pretty much obligatory. 2 True Silvers, they're another card like Aldor, you just sort of put them in almost every Paladin deck. Even aggro Paladin has True Silvers, I think. 2 Consecrates, again, just such a great card. Pretty much an auto include. 2 Piloted Shredders, a really solid minion that I'd put in anyway, but it does have synergy with the 1 Redemption. Spellbreaker, so I like to have at least 1 Silence in my Control Paladin decks. You can sort of swap out Iron Beak Owl or Spellbreaker, depends on what you want to go for. Iron Beak Owl has anti-synergy with our Abomination because its body does die to Abomination. Spellbreaker is a little bit better for our curve, so have a Spellbreaker instead of Owl. Antique Heal Bot, you'll find that you need a lot of heal with this kind of deck. A lot of decks even run 2 heal bots. I'm just running 1. Sludge Belcher, I think we still need 1. It's a really great card. You know, I don't think Abomination can fully replace a Sludge Belcher. Piloted Sky Golems in this deck are better than Cairn in my opinion because Paladin doesn't always have a good way to help Cairn trade up to do that 5 damage to Sludge Belchers and Sylvanas and other things that you need to do 5 damage to. So Piloted Sky Golem doesn't need any help trading, and it is something they have to deal with unlike Cairn because of the 6 attack. It's like a high main. Sunwalker, it has some redemption synergies. You might consider taking it out though for Kel'Thuzad. It's not really an amazing card. Sylvanas is just a really great card, and you can possibly steal 2 things with redeeming it. Just pretty standard in control decks nowadays. Dr. Boom, again, it's sort of like an auto include in any mid-range or control deck right now, so just throw them in there. 2 Lay on Hands. A lot of people only run 1 Lay on Hands. I like to run 2. I got this from a streamer named Hotform. It's like Sprint and Oil Rogue. It's not that you need to use both of your sprints over the course of the game, although sometimes you will. It's that by the point in the game that you're running out of cards, you really want to have a Lay on Hands in your hand. It makes the deck more consistent card draw wise. Tyrion, that's just sort of another auto include for Control Paladin, and it does have a little bit of synergy with our one redemption. So that's the deck. Let's take it for a spin in Ranked. So this is a game I recorded of me playing in Ranked. It's the start of the season, so I'm rank 16, I think. And there's no telling what you'll run into at the start of the season, so this will be interesting. Okay, so I'm just going to keep the shielded mini-bot here. You almost always want that in your opening hand. And it is a totem killer versus shaman, so it's really good. And we got back True Silver and Piloted Shredder. Those were both good options. If we were going second, it would be a little bit better for our curve, because then we'd have a turn 2, 3, and 4 play possibly. But as it stands now, we have a turn 2 play. We'll probably Hero Power on turn 3. Then turn 4, we'll either drop a Shredder or a True Silver, depending on which is better for us. So like I said, easy turn 2 shielded mini-bot. And we got the redemption in hand, so we've got 2 minions that synergize with redemption, so that's good. But we're going to have a difficult decision coming up on whether or not we Hero Power when we put the redemption out. So now here's an interesting scenario. You can activate the Pyromancer off of the redemption and end up killing the Harvest Golem completely, I think. So that's an option. And it will leave your Wild Pyromancer alive, and because the mini-bot does have Divine Shield, it will leave the mini-bot alive as well. So I'm sort of thinking about that right now. It looks like I'd decide to go with that play, because otherwise I'm really not doing much with my turn. And it actually doesn't completely clear the golem, like I said. It clears the front half of it, is what I meant. So now, whichever minion he attacks will get redeemed, if he does attack a minion. He may be thinking this is Noble Sacrifice right now. Not many people run Paladin Secrets, so it's pretty tricky to figure out which one it is. Actually, Avenge is probably the most likely. That's probably what he's thinking it is. So he decides to not attack either minion, because he doesn't want Avenge to go off, because he probably has no way to deal with it really well right now. So now it's, if we want to play on curve, it's either True Silver or Shredder. And I kill off the Pyro because I want either the Shredder or the mini-bot to get redeemed. And that's kind of a huge tell as to what secret I have up. But I did it anyway. Because sacrificing a 3-1 when you have a 2-1 on the board is definitely a mistake unless there's something going on, something else going on there. So now he's probably thinking about, well, why did he make that trade? Probably he has redemption, but even though he probably knows it's redemption now, he decides to go ahead and ram into the mini-bot and give me a 2-1 with Divine Shield again, which is actually pretty nice. But he has an Earth Shock, so that's one reason he felt comfortable doing that play. But eating through Earth Shocks is a pretty good thing with Paladin, especially this kind of Paladin that has so many silenced targets. If you can run through all their Earth Shocks and Hexes before you drop Tyrion, then they can be in a whole lot of trouble. Alright, we got a Crazed Alchemist off of Shredder. That's not the best thing, but it's certainly not the worst. And now I drop Acolyte of Pain just because he has 3 one-attack minions on the board, so it seems pretty likely we'll be able to get more than 1 draw out of Acolyte, which is basically all you want, is to get 2 draws out of him. And to be able to kill 1/1s with it is even better. And since he used his Earth Shock, it's much less likely that he's going to have some way to kill the Acolyte right now without giving us any draws. Alright, so he totems, so maybe he has a Lightning Storm that he wants to play. And he does. And that storm is guaranteed to kill everything, but it's really not that bad of a storm. You know, it killed the leftovers of a Shredder, it killed an Acolyte, which gave us a card, and it killed one of my hero powers. Not a big deal. So here, I probably just want to drop Belcher because he blocks all the minions he has out. Doesn't quite use all of our mana, but there's nothing profitable really to do with the True Silver right now, so there's no point in trying to saturate our mana that way. Alright, so he crackles. And he does get the 5 damage he needs. In fact, he gets 6. And he's able to completely clear the Belcher, but he is going to be overloaded next turn, and it did kill one of his 1/1s, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but against Shaman, anything you can do to kill one of their little guys is really good, because those little guys really, their effects get multiplied by Flame Tongue and stuff, so, and Defender of Argus if the Shamans run them, so you really want to clear Shaman's board, especially as a control deck, because that's the way they're going to win against you, is just grind you out with all of their little guys. Alright, so he has a Belcher of his own. We can clear the front end of the Belcher with the True Silver, or we can drop a Sunwalker and a Hero Power to saturate our mana, and that is what I'm going to do. And I'm not going to attack into the Belcher because it really doesn't accomplish anything. He's got a Healing Totem there, so I'd basically just be trading Divine Shield on my mini-bot for doing 1 damage to his Belcher. And we've got the Consecrate in hand, which is really great to have versus Shaman. You don't want to be stranded without a Consecrate. So we're sitting on a Consecrate. Whenever his board gets really big with a lot of little things, we have an out to just clear them all. And he does run Argus. And we see the second Earth Shock. So he's running out of silences. He still has 2 hexes. And it's kind of important how he trades here to see how good it can make our Consecrate. He probably wants to leave the Creeper intact so that he gets the 1/1s after the Consecrate. Now he's leaving everything at 1 health, which means after the healing thing, they'll be at 2 health, which is perfect for Consecrate, and he does actually kill off the front end of his Creeper, so this Consecrate just kills everything, except for the back end of the Sludge Belcher, which, I mean, how much could you really ask for in this situation, though? Now the choice here is whether I True Silver or not, and if I True Silver, whether I hit the taunt or not. And it seems pretty wasteful, but since he's running out of cards, I decide to do it just so I can clear his board completely, and so that my Silverhand Recruit actually kills something instead of just getting hit by the slime and not really accomplishing anything. So he has initiative now, with 9 mana and 3 cards, so he could do something pretty scary here, but we do have an Aldor for something like Neptulon with 7 attack. So he's going to have a lot of Murlocs. That was a great turn for him because it refilled his hand. But we get Tyrion. But Aldor is really just too good to use. 7 attack is probably the highest attack of any minion that this guy is running, other than maybe Dr. Boom. So we're going to Aldor, and if we Aldor, the only other thing we can fit in is the Paladin Sky Golem. So we're going to do that. And the Sky Golem can act as bait for any hexes he has left. You know, we're only 2 hexes away from being able to drop Tyrion and get full value from him. So we see his Murlocs. He got the Tide Collar, which is a good one to get because you can buff it up with all the other Murlocs you have left. Puddle Stomper is also good because it's one of the best statted Murlocs. A 3/2 for 2 is a lot better than, you know, the 2/1s or what have you. Alright, so we don't have any board clears left. We're gonna have to do this the hard way, kind of. We can True Silver one of the wolves, and then we can attack one of the wolves with the Sky Golem, and then keep our Peacekeeper alive by just attacking it into the 0 attack taunt totem. And he didn't use Hex last time, but that doesn't necessarily mean he doesn't have it, but we're going to throw down Tyrion anyway because Lay on Hands wasn't that strong there because we had almost full health. And now we'll probably get to see the rest of his Murlocs. Since his Tide Collar did survive, he's going to want to draw all the Murlocs he has, I would think. He's got a War Leader, which is really good. He got a really solid combination of Murlocs here. And the Siltfin Spirit Walker, which is really good because he's, you know, he's in danger of running low on cards in the next couple turns, but now, you know, he's going to have the card advantage on me, definitely. Probably even after the Lay on Hands, because every Murloc that dies is going to give him another card. So he's considering what he wants to trade with. And we get a Arcane Ethereal Arcanist, which is one of the lower value things you can get off of Shredder. So here we have a conundrum because you kind of want to kill the War Leader first to remove his buff, but then he draws an extra card. To be honest, I really wasn't. That slipped my mind that he was going to draw a card when I did that. I just sort of attacked the War Leader by instinct. That may have been a mistake. And we Lay on Hands because that's about the only thing we have left to do in our hand. Fills out our mana, gets us prepared for next turn. We already have the board advantage, so we don't have to feel pressured to throw down a big game hunter or something. We're not in dire straits like that. And we're looking pretty good. We got a really solid weapon up. We got, you know, 6/6 worth of stats on the board. He's got nothing. And we do have the health advantage. And we have the best combo in the game. We have Equality Consecrate in our hand. So I'd expect maybe a Fire Elemental here, and there it goes. A 3/3 target is really good value for a Fire Ellie. Alright, so our card that we're talking about, the Abomination, is finally in our hand. I was afraid we were going to go through the whole game without getting to show it off. We only had 10 cards left in the deck, but we finally got him. So I'm just going to tank 5 damage to the face, 6 damage to the face rather. It's not that big of a deal since we do have second Lay on Hands in our hand and we're at full health. Now here you see the anti-synergy with A-Bomb. We got 2 1/1s that are just going to bite the dust because of A-Bomb's Death Rattle. But I kind of had to play it. I didn't have any better minions to play, and it's just too passive to hero power past there. So, like I said in the playing tips, the advantage of Abomination over Area of Effect spells is that there's a minion body attached to it, so don't be afraid to use that. Just, you know, drop down a 4/4 minion with Taunt for 5 mana. It's not the greatest thing ever, but it's a thing. So he puts down an Azure Drake. That's not a great target for us to kill. And then he also puts down a Lotheb, so we can actually trade really well with this board. I think he had to throw down the Lotheb though, because our weapon would have just taken out the Azure Drake, and he would have been at the same spot he was before. But we do sort of 2-for-1 with Abomination there, which is about as good as it's going to get in this scenario. And now we do have lethal damage on board, and we have 6 damage in hand in form of True Silver and Consecrate, so this game looks like it's coming to a close. We'll see. He should have a Hex left somewhere in his hand, you would think, by at this point in the game. Some shamans are cutting hexes altogether, but this looks like a pretty standard mid-rangey shaman, not a mech shaman. And even better than a hex, he actually has a big game hunter there. But the great thing about Dr. Boom is the big game hunter doesn't completely clear it. It leaves behind the boom bots, which can really dismantle the board of your enemy. And now we got to do some math about how I want to take out his board, or if we have lethal here. And I don't see guaranteed lethal. I may be wrong. I don't see guaranteed lethal in this position, but we're going to try for it by consecrating first and then throwing our mini bots in. I mean our boom bots in. I think it was actually better to attack with the recruit first instead of the boom bot, because it gave us a better chance for lethal, but it's not a big deal at this point. Notice we put our Shredder in the middle of our 2 Silverhand recruits in case that we get a Direwolf Alpha or a Flame Tongue off of it. That's something that I don't see many people do, even like pros that stream. But I do think it's worth it because Shaman doesn't have any positional spell effects. So there's really no downside to doing it that way. And we won. So there's one game with Control Paladin with Abomination. Did Abomination perform amazing feats for us? No. Really, that's about the normal amount of value you're going to get out of Abomination. Here's 2 other decks I came up with when I was testing Abomination out. The first one is just a standard Control Warrior deck with some Abominations thrown in, nothing too creative there. I did take out Baron Geddon because the Abom already provides a sweeper for you. And here's the Feign Death Control Hunter build. This is based around Show's Feign Death Hunter, and the changes I made were obviously to add in an Abomination, but I also added in the Ruby and Eggs because I felt that they heavily synergize with both Feign Death and Abomination.
Rend and tear.